Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashoda Nandana Vrajana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Vrajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Astotra Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Welcome to Srimad Bhagavatam class. Reading from the 10th canto, 75th chapter, 36th verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Nasta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamasloka Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Om Jnanatimrandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangulangayate Girim Yatkripatamaham Vande Shri Gurundinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Isharam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimati Romapada Swami Iti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasyata Deshatarine. Tatra Duryodhano Mani Parito Ratrabir Nripa Kirita Malinya Vishad Asihasta Kishvan Rusha Tatra Duryodhano Mani Padito Ratrabir Nripa Kirita malinya vishad asihasta kishpanrusha tatra duryodhano mani parito bratrabir nripa kirita malinya vishad asihasta kishpanrusha. Please chant. Tatra, there, Duryodhana, Mani, proud, Paritaha, surrounded, Ratrabihi, by his brothers, Nripa, O king, Kirita, wearing a crown, Mali, and a necklace, Yavishat, entered, Asi, a sword, Hastaha, in hand, Kishpan, insulting the doorkeepers, Rusha, angry. Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Proud Duryodhana, holding a sword in his hand and wearing a crown necklace, angrily went into the palace in the company of his brothers, O king, insulting the doorkeepers as he entered. Purport. Srila Prabhupada writes that Duryodhana, quote, was always in an envious and angry mood, and therefore, on a slight provocation, he spoke sharply with the doorkeepers and became angry. So there's 4 words in the verse translation purport that stood out to me that are worth discussing. One of the glories of the Bhagavatam is that every single verse is somehow or another directing us towards Krishna. And sometimes it's telling us about the glories of Krishna, sometimes what to do, what not to do. So this verse we can analyze in one way as seeing what not to do if we want to move towards Krishna. So these 4 words, the first one is mani, which is translated here as proud, and Srila Sridhar Swami also gives that the meaning can be false ego. Rusha is angry, and Srila Prabhupada in the Krishna book writes that Duryodhana is envious. So going in no particular order, or mildly particular order at the very least, starting with pride. In the Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada says that pride is the desire to exhibit superiority. And he also says that pride causes delusion. When someone's prideful and thinks of themselves better than others, that's bodily consciousness. Pride means that we think we are, or I think I am, better than other living entities. And Srila Prabhupada would very often use the word pride in conjunction with the word delusion. So the dictionary definition of delusion is a false belief or judgment about external reality, held despite incontrovertible evidence to the contrary, occurring especially in mental conditions. It's actually a nice definition to use to understand pride. So our pride is making us misunderstand external and internal reality. We think that we are the body, even though that there's abundant evidence that we're not the body. The evidence is there if we properly analyze our situation, our connection with the body. So yesterday was Nirjala Ekadasi, which is a really great time for one to delve into this analysis of not being the body. By ignoring the body's demands, one can cultivate this understanding that there is some separation from the body. Those of us who suffer from chronic pain can also understand pretty easily that we're not the body by observing the pain experienced. This is speaking from my own experience, that there's, a lot of the time the pain is there, but the pain's just in the body. When I really think about it, I'm not even my mind is experiencing the pain. What's happening is there's pain signals coming into the brain, and the brain saying, ow, oh, this is uncomfortable. And the false ego is telling the soul, you are hurting. But actually, it's not the soul that's feeling any pain, it's the body. Through our mental conditioning, we're taught to identify with the body, or identify the body as the self. And by more conditioning and more propaganda, we're led to believe, for whatever reason, that I'm better than blank, whatever group of persons or an individual person or other living entities. We might be thinking I'm better than those householders because I've given up all the sense enjoyment that they're attached to, or those brahmacharis and sannyasis can't handle the real world, so they hide in their little bubbles, but I'm out here facing the real world. We might think as devotees that because I'm a devotee and I don't eat meat and I only eat prasad, I'm better than the dirty meat eaters. Or I have second initiation, so I'm a Brahmin. I'm more important than those who are not Brahmins. Or we might think I was born in a particular family, so that makes me special. We might think I was born in a Brahmin family, so naturally I'm a Brahmin, even if one has the tendencies of a Chandala. This is the schizophrenic nature of modern society. We're always trying to distinguish our body as ourself and distinguish it from other people and their bodies. and I'm better than you, and nobody's better than me because I'm me and I'm great. There's so many divisions that are made in this world, either by our own pride or the pride of others being exerted upon those they might have control over. We keep trying to make factions of us and them solely for the purpose of inflating our own pride. But those with real knowledge understand that we are not these bodies. We are the soul within the body. And not just I'm the soul within my body and everyone else is inanimate. This is a somewhat popular idea amongst some of the youths. They have this idea of NPCs, non-playable characters, that are just people that are there, kind of like robots moving around, doing certain pattern things and nothing more. And it's a form of pride. So next there's envy. And envy and pride are two sides of the same coin. When we're suffering from pride, we're trying to see ourselves as better than. But no one single person is the best person in every single respect. Someone who's conventionally beautiful might have the brain power of a slug, or someone who's born to a particular family might be socially inept. Even those people that we look and see their lives and say, oh, they have everything, they have it all, actually usually don't have any real substance to their lives. Beauty, conventional or otherwise, mundane intelligence, wealth, birth in a particular family or even species in the broader picture, skin color, material possessions, all of these things are ephemeral. They're here one moment and gone the next. They can be gone so quickly. So what's the value of something that can leave at any given time, that's going to leave at any given time? It's going to degrade and deteriorate. When you buy a new car, the second you turn the key and drive off the lot, it loses a significant portion of the value. It could be $10, $20, $30, $40,000 just by moving it a few feet, because now it's your car. So it's not a new car, it's a used car, even if you haven't really used it. So what is the value then if something can depreciate just by the changing of a name on a piece of paper? Or there's, the stock market, which is even more speculative than that. We hold all of these things in very high significance, and when we're lacking one, or we see someone possessing something that we don't have, then we tend to harbor this desire for that thing, and along with a desire for the object possessed by someone else, we have a resentment towards that person. But the question is, what do we actually want? Why do we hate people who have what we want? The problem is we come to this material world with the desire to be Krishna, because Krishna is the possessor of all opulence, beauty. He's the reservoir of pleasure. He possesses all bliss and knowledge. He has truly unlimited glories, opulence, all of these things. So we have this disease that is, we want to be Krishna. We come here because we want to be the predominator. And by Krishna's mercy, we have this place where we can sometimes play this role of the predominator. But when one's playing a role like in any movie or theatrical performance or a video game, the role is a temporary thing. We've come to try to be Krishna, but we're not actually Krishna. While we're here, we're simply pretending. But this mercy that Krishna gives us when we come here is twofold. He gives us a place to come and play and act like we're something else. But he's also given us built-in problems so that we can see, if we apply our intelligence, that we don't actually belong here. Krishna's given us these things to try to nudge us back in the direction of where we came from. But more and more as the age of Kali Yuga progresses, the illusion persists, the Maya becomes stronger, and envy is a very big driving factor of why we remain stuck in the cycle of birth and death. Envy is called the competitor of divine love, because if we have envy, we are incapable of possessing divine love. We are ineligible for the spiritual world. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has wrote in this connection. He says, "O reader, non-enviousness alone is liberation for the living being, and envy his only bondage. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, it has therefore been said, endowed with full faith and devotion, listen to the life work of Sri Chaitanya. Cast aside envy and let your mouth sing Hari, Hari." Envy can, will, and does have a very wicked effect on us. And by the poisoning of envy, we can go from loving somebody to hating them. We might have respect for somebody, but when envy creeps into our hearts and our minds, the love that we feel for someone can instantly be turned to hate or anger or dislike with somebody. The Sanskrit word priti means love, and that love is actually pure sweetness. So how can we experience pure sweetness if our hearts are full of the very bitter and vile matsarya, which is the Sanskrit word for envy? So next we have false ego. Such a large portion of our difficulties, if not the very source of our difficulties in this material world, is the false identification with the body. Tamal Krishna Goswami says that suffering means bodily identification, and one who's not identified with the body doesn't suffer. And Srila Prabhupada said in the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, when we're materially contaminated, we're called conditioned. False consciousness is exhibited under the impression that I am part of material nature. That is called false ego. One who is absorbed in the thought of bodily conceptions cannot understand this situation. Bhagavad Gita was spoken to liberate one from the bodily concept of life, and Arjuna put himself in this position in order to receive this information from the Lord. One must become free from the bodily concept of life. That is the preliminary activity for the transcendentalist. One who wants to become free, who wants to become liberated, must first learn that he is not this material body. When we come to this world, we take on a body. The nature of that body is gross, both literally and metaphorically, and the soul itself is Satchidananda. So these two things don't necessarily directly interact with each other. So we're given a mind and material intelligence, which are subtle in nature. And between the subtle body and the soul sits the false ego, or the ahankara. The ahankara is the thing that convinces us that we are the body. In a purport in the third canto, Srila Prabhupada says the material creation is meant for rebellious souls who are not prepared to accept subordination under the Supreme Lord. This spirit of false lordship is called false ego. It is manifest in three modes of material nature and exists in mental speculation only. Those who are in the mode of goodness think that each and every person is God, and thus they laugh at the pure devotees who try to engage in transcendental loving service to the Lord. Those who are puffed up by the mode of passion try to lord it over the material nature in various ways. The last class of egoistic conditioned souls, those in the mode of ignorance, are misguided by identification of the gross body with the self. Thus, all their activities are centered around the body only. All these persons are given the chance to play with false egoistic ideas, but at the same time, the Lord is kind enough to give them a chance to take help from scriptures like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, so that they may understand the science of Krishna and thus make their lives successful. The entire material creation, therefore, is meant for the falsely egoistic living entities hovering on the mental plane under different illusions in the modes of material nature. Our false ego will have us think so much nonsense. It's the cause of Duryodhana's anger in this verse, and it's the cause of our problems here in the material world. We're in a dreamlike state here. So there's one bhajan by Bhaktivinoda Thakur that says, Lord Gauranga is calling, wake up sleeping souls, wake up sleeping souls. How long will you sleep? In the lap of the witch called Maya. You've forgotten the way of devotional service and are lost in the world of birth and death. I have descended just to save you. Other than myself, you have no friend in this world. I have brought the medicine that will wipe out the disease of illusion from which you are suffering. Take this Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this dreamlike state is perpetuated, facilitated by the false ego. So lastly, we come to anger. Srila Prabhupada says about anger that when unchecked, it pollutes the body, and that anger is a product of the mode of passion and lust. As soon as the concoctions of material enjoyment are there, because of our association, we create sort of lust or eagerness to enjoy. And then the false enjoyment doesn't actually make us happy. We create another illusion known as anger. By the manifestation of anger, the illusion becomes stronger. It's from the 4th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, thinking ourselves to be this body, we're trying to enjoy, but when we can't, we become frustrated or angry. It is possible to use anger in Krishna's service, but this verse isn't a direct example. Actually, the next verse, we can actually use the next verse to analyze this verse to understand how anger is used in Krishna's service, but it's not a direct correlation. Using anger in Krishna's service primarily means not using it for our own service. More often it's said that devotees are free from anger. However, an example of anger in devotional service would be some of the pastimes of Hanuman. He was a great devotee of Lord Ram. He was able to use his anger in the Lord's service. But in a conditioned state, we're usually only using anger for our own interests. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that insulting means that Duryodhana was yelling at the doorkeepers. And, excuse me, similarly, Sridhar Swami says that the verse implies not just the doorkeepers, but other people as well. So you can see that Duryodhana is deluded by his bodily identification and has become angry. So actually these other three things correlate directly with false ego. The idea of thinking I'm this body, I'm an American, I'm a man, I'm an Indian, I'm a woman, I'm a truck driver from Toledo, whatever it is. All these things are features of the false ego, convincing us that we're the body. Then pride comes and says, I'm better than everyone because of these things. When we feel that we aren't better than somebody or that somebody is better than us, then we feel enviousness. We want what they have, or we want to be better than them, or whatever it is. And then anger comes from not having that superiority. But devotional service to Krishna means abandoning all things that are not useful in giving pleasure to Krishna. Therefore, we abandon these qualities that we're reading about in this verse, such as anger, false ego, pride, and envy, because they don't serve Krishna. There's a nice quote from Sachinandana Swami, and he says, all of these great personalities have what's called vahana, or a vehicle. So Ganga Devi, day before yesterday was Ganga Puja. Ganga Devi's vehicle is a white crocodile. Lord Vishnu rides Garuda. Ganapati rides a mouse. And so many of these other personalities have a vahana. or a vehicle. So Sachinanda Maharaj poses the question, what is the vahana of bhakti? And the first time I heard this, I was kind of perplexed. I was expecting an animal of some sort, but I had never heard of Bhakti Devi having a vehicle or a carrier. So Sachinanda Maharaj said that the carrier of Bhakti Devi, the carrier of devotional service, is the humility of the devotees. And these four qualities that we've been discussing this morning are at odds with humility. There's no way to be humble if we're becoming angry with others, or if we're feeling proud or envious, or if we're identifying with the false ego. Actual humility is to realize not just that I'm a soul, but that everyone else is a soul, and we're all equal on that level, and that actually our position is to be the servant of Krishna. So it's a oil and water situation. You can't mix these two things. We can feign humility. It's a very easy thing to do. But to actually have humility is to understand, really truly deeply understand our actual position. Not that it's not a circumstantial thing either, so that when we're in the association of advanced devotees or very respectable people, we're humble. That also has to be the same when we're around people who are younger than us, or junior to us, or not as advanced as us. The Shikshastakam says, Trinadapi Sunicheda, Tarorapi Sahishuna, Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. That we have to be in a humble state of mind to be able to chant Hare Krishna. So this is completely important. It's completely germane to trying to practice devotional service, because how can one be a devotee in this age without chanting Hare Krishna? How can one properly serve Krishna without humility? So with that, we're running a little early on time, which is nice. So if we have any comments, we can take those now.
on anger. The anger, the main origin of anger, where is it coming from? Why we are getting anger? So, can you throw some light?
Shed some light on why we're becoming angry. Are you asking me to? It's kind of hard to hear with the sound system. So you're asking me
Anger.
anger?
Yeah.
Yes. Why do we get angry?
Yes.
Because we're in the bodily concept of life. Because we're thinking, I am this body, and you're that body, and you have something that I don't have, or you're doing something that I don't like, or something like that. We're trying to domineer. We're trying to control. We're trying to be the predominator. We're trying to be Krishna, but we can't be Krishna. I can't exert myself over you any more than you allow me to. So when I don't get what I want, then I become angry. I become deluded and envious and angry because I'm not getting my way. And I'm not getting my way because I'm not Krishna. But the false ego will very quickly have one thinking that I am the greatest thing that's ever graced the face of the earth. There's nobody better than me, nor will there ever will be. So when we think this way about ourselves, then we think we should get what we want, and people should do what we want them to do in the way we want them to do it, at the time we want them to do it, and everybody should like me and respect me. But when we don't get what we want, it's just a natural reaction for the conditioned soul. Sadness, anger, envy, jealousy. And it's all, these four topics are all very interwoven. They play off of each other. One will increase the other. And you can't necessarily have one without the other. They work so well together, but you can certainly move from one to the other. We start with these ideas coming from false ego, and when our pride is violated, that's when the anger can come.
Well, you spoke or devoted a part of the presentation to the identifying with the body, and you brought up the example that maybe personal of that having pain in the body allows one to understand that there's some separation from the body because the mind is, this was what you communicated, that the mind is saying, no, this doesn't feel very good, or it's not pleasant, or whatever. So it seems that actually the mind, the subtle body, it's very much interconnected to that identification with the body, because the experience on the gross plane is also being interpreted on the subtle plane. So it's all interconnected. So to really talk about a separation in terms of seeing oneself as separate from the body, so understanding both the gross pain or even the subtle pain one experiences, because one's recognizing that the gross body that one's inhabiting is having pain, it seems that there has to be a means to transcend both the gross experience and the subtle experience, like a new reality. Because otherwise one is very much living the reality according to the place one is inhabiting, which is the body. So it seems it's quite a challenging thing to actually shift realities, because you do live out the experience within the place that you're inhabiting. So I'm just processing what you communicated.
Right. I think we have to start this segregation of the true self from the false self with the, at least for myself, it's been easier to start by first separating the idea of self from the gross body. In other words, realizing that I'm not this physical body, but that still leaves some wiggle room to think that I'm the mind, which is actually, for me at least, a lot more difficult than realizing I'm not the body. But it's a process, and it's building, taking a little bit of information that's verifiable or believable, and then building on top of it with more information, and then verifying it, or if it's unbearable, discarding it. So by understanding, okay, my body's in pain, and my mind is telling me that I'm in pain, I can either choose to go along with that, or I can understand, okay, the body's in pain, so the vehicle isn't running right, so I'm not going to go as fast as I could or whatever, but I'm operating the vehicle. I have to operate it within its means, as it were, its reduced capacity. But the desire for more is still there. And that was really the kind of foot in the door for me, was, laying in bed completely unable to move and hearing kirtan. I wanted to get up and dance more than anything, but I knew my body either wouldn't let me, or I would have to, pay the price for doing it. So there's, it's a foot in the door, it's a crack in the window to starting to understand, okay, I'm not the physical body, but there's still this identification, but I feel it, but I also feel like I want to do something else. I feel like I can't move, and maybe my body can't physically move at that time, but I want to move. I want to get up. And as things progress, then, I've noticed that there's times I can't physically do something, but mentally I'm, running around and doing jumping jacks and jumping with joy and all of that. So there's a discord or a disconnect between those two things. But it has, for me at least, it has to start with the gross body and analyzing, okay, this body doesn't function the way it used to, but the mind still wants to do things that I used to be able to do. And internally, I still feel the same way. And I think it's a difficult concept for a lot of people, because at least, the way I was taught growing up is you kind of identify your feelings as you, and you identify the symptoms of the body as you. So, like on days that I was too sick to go to school, I wasn't allowed to watch TV. I wasn't allowed to do anything enjoyable. I had to just sit and be miserable because I was sick. I didn't want to be miserable. I didn't want to just sit in a dark room and, eat soup. I wanted to do other things, but there was this really heavy pounding into my head that, no, you are sick, so you can't do anything. But realizing, okay, the body is sick, but I still want to do something. I still can do some things, not everything necessarily, is that, kind of the beginning stages of understanding this. And I think even harder to separate oneself from the gross body is to separate oneself from the subtle body. It's very common for people to think or assume that they are their mind, that all of the thinks and thoughts and processes that go on are me. I am my thoughts, which can lead to a lot of self-effacing and self-degradation and just not good things. And a lot of modern therapy is trying to convince people that you're not your thoughts. You have thoughts, just like you might have a pocket full of rocks, and you can walk around with a pocket full of rocks, or you can empty your pockets and walk around a little easier. But you are not the pocket full of rocks. You are you. So in the same way, I'm not the body, so I'm not the pain in the body. I'm me. I'm not the thoughts in my head. I just have to deal with the thoughts in my head one way or another. And I think a big part of overcoming the envy, the anger, the other one that I can't think of the name of, the pride, is realizing that, okay, these are thoughts. These are ideas that I have about myself. They're not necessarily true, and they're not who I am. And it's that accurate self-appraisal that allows one to move into the desired space of humility. And from that desired space of humility, then we can begin the practice of bhakti. So I don't know if that helps, but I was able to at least expunge some thoughts on the subject that I didn't get to write into the class itself. Anything else? All right. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.